My name's Eric Cohn. I'm the artistic director here at the Southampton Playhouse, and I was stuck across the hallway introducing The Odyssey, which you should see, but I'm really happy that you're here tonight because we have plenty of showtimes for that through the weekend. And this movie is so much fun, and it's such a perfect way to kick off our Comedy Canon series. We've got a lot of other good comedies coming up this summer, including Some Like It Hot. We're showing Three Amigos, other stuff we haven't announced yet. And if this is your first time in the Playhouse, welcome. This is the kind of eclecticism that we go for. The space has been here since 1932, but we were reborn as a nonprofit last year, and the support of this community has just been extraordinary, and it's really allowed us to branch out and go in all these amazing different directions. We kicked off our investment in comedy earlier this month. We had a stand-up comedy show across the hallway, hosted by Caroline Hirsch, and it was such a wonderful experience, and it was so great to see that everyone was excited to laugh and talk about how much they loved comedy. So we're going to keep that momentum going, and what I think is really exciting about being able to start the series with this particular film is that Mel Brooks turned 100 years old earlier this summer, and he is an absolute icon. And if you're going to highlight the sort of importance of American comedy and the relationship between comic actors and stage performance and storytelling on the big screen, you got to start with one of the greats. But at the same time, I'm not the funniest guy, so I'm not going to stand here and tell you a bunch of stuff in a sort of boring historical context about Young Frankenstein, and I felt that for a comedy series, we really need the perspective of people who get into comedy professionally. So I was thrilled, first of all, to be able to partner with Abby Russell's Sticks and Stones Comedy Club and the Hamptons Comedy Festival to put together the series, and that she suggested a comedian who's been in this game for a bit, has seen this movie a lot, and he was the booker for Letterman, the opener for Letterman for many years, among many other things. He is a true comedy legend, and he's seen this movie enough times to tell us what it's all about. Please welcome Eddie Brill.
The seats are so nice and new. I worked at a movie theater when I was 14. You had to be 16 to work, but I couldn't go see like R-rated movies, so I lied my age, and I looked like I was 8. But who else wants to work for $1.40 an hour? But anyway, hi everybody.
So tell us about this movie. When did you see it for the first time, and what impact did it have on you?
Well, what's interesting about this film, I had worked at the theater, and I saw every movie, so I didn't know some movies were what. I saw the producers, and I thought it was terrific. And then I saw Blazing Saddles, and I thought it was a Western. I had no idea it was a comedy. And it unfolded in a way that I couldn't believe it. I was literally rolling in the aisles with my friend Pete Widener, who I called today to tell him I was going to talk about this. One of the cool things about Blazing Saddles is that there's a callback to the producers. There's, in the producers, they had that song "Springtime for Hitler" was a big rousing number. And when the two of them, when Cleavon Little and Gene Wilder were walking from the jail to, I don't know if you guys know this, I've watched each movie 30 times. I didn't know this until about the 28th time. When they're walking to go see Lily Von Shtupp do her show, the music in the background was "Springtime for Hitler." So next time you see it, you'll hear that music. I got to meet Cloris Leachman and work with her. Sorry, folks, it's over. We're done. But welcome.
You just get started.
Yeah. So anyway, one of the many cool things in my life is I worked for I created the Johnny Carson Comedy Festival in his hometown in Nebraska. And I brought a bunch of different legends in to talk about Johnny, and one of them was Cloris Leachman, who has an EGOT, they call it, has an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. And you would think she was just very mellow. I got a phone, what would happen is I would interview these people who would come in at the desk that we created that looked just like Johnny's with actual Johnny stuff on the desk. And a friend of mine called me earlier that day and said, "I see you're going to interview Cloris Leachman. She is the worst, craziest interview I've ever done. I couldn't get her to answer any questions. It was crazy." So I was like, "Oh, well, thanks for the heads up." And so all day I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to be as crazy as she is. So she came out and she said, hi. And I went, hi. And then she put her feet on the desk and I put my feet on the desk. And then I got up and started dancing. Then she started dancing. And then I started like la 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 la. And she'd go la 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 la. And she was having this, she was just an amazing person. She, I guess her whole life has been interviewed by people who bore her because she's out of her mind in hilarity. And I asked her about Young Frankenstein. She said it's the most fun she ever had in the movie because she got to play. And she says it's the movie that more people come up to her and say, Ovaltine, which you will see in the film. And it was just a pleasure. And at the end of the segment with her, she lifted her dress and flashed moon the audience in Nebraska. So very wild. But she was really an amazing person who loved comedy as much as she was an incredible serious actor. Most serious actors appreciate the art form that's comedy.
What can you tell us about Mel Brooks, especially this phase? It's amazing to think about how long his career had been sort of developing by the time he made this movie, starting out on TV and all of that with was it Sid
or Sid Caesar?
Sid Caesar, yeah. So
the show of shows.
Yeah. He was a writer.
That group of folks who wrote on that show were amazing, and Mel Brooks was amazing and a great writer. And I still, I got to see a lot of the old Dick Cavett shows with Mel Brooks, and he was just spontaneously hilarious, and he didn't have to try really hard. But when I met him again at Letterman show, I'm very spoiled. I met him, and his son was Eddie too, which made it easier to chat with him. I don't know if it did or not, but he was just so kind. He's such a human being with the emotion. Comedy. People think comedy is just like, oh, try to be funny. It's actually not. You don't try to be funny. You just let yourself be who you are. Find out who you are and be, wrap yourself around that. Not to try to please the audience, but to be pleased, please yourself. Not that way, but, it'll be like, 6 people arrested at the theater. The key, Rick Rubin, the famous producer, had said, I don't write my music for the audience, I write it for myself. And then Stephen Wright, who I went to college with, I was with him the next day. He said, I'm the same way. And then you look at people like Mel Brooks, he did things that made him laugh. And in turn, it made the audience laugh. And I think that's what the beauty he had. He didn't care about approval. I mean, everyone in a sense does. But he really cared about doing things that made him laugh. And he still does 100 years later. I met him and when he was, I think it was like 89, young chipper, and he just was sweet and kind and emotionally there. And I think that's an important part of comedy.
Yeah, can you talk about storytelling in comedy too? Because I think what's really interesting is, this is a movie that makes fun of all these classic monster movie genres, but it's a great story. And that's true for all of his movies. You really feel that.
Yeah, I think the story is the key in every scenario. And this is a parody song. Like if you were when we were kids, we would change the words to songs we knew. When we were 11 and 12, we would laugh our asses off, and they'd be filthy and childish. But that's what they were doing here. There were 4 other Frankenstein movies before Young Frankenstein came out, and Gene Wilder was working on this movie while they were working on Blazing Saddles. And Mel said, "Will you let us finish this film first?" He goes, "No, it's going to be great." So what, bless you. I thought you were about to ask a question. Because the beginning of your sneeze had a little, mountain of happiness. And then after that, it came in with she's sneezing. So are you okay? All right, much better probably. People say it's like an orgasm, right? Okay. Yeah, of course. You know what I thought? Like, if God made the orgasm, so he must be really proud. But he also made the burning bush, so I guess he had to compensate for that. I'm glad that got a laugh, because not every crowd. But anyway, it's all about storytelling. You set it up, you knock it down. And a lot of times I write a joke, I'll write the end of it first, and then work backwards. Not every time, but the burning bush joke, I thought of burning bush and then worked my way back, and got a laugh today, which is good because it's a new joke. But I really enjoy playing with words. And I think, like George Carlin, when I was 5, I got a book for my birthday, and the book was Jokes, Riddles, and Boners, which meant something different when I was 5. And there was a joke in there that said, "What did Tennessee?" And the answer was the same thing Arkansas. Okay, and you laugh pretty hard, right? And it's silly, it's goofy, but it's fun, and so the combination of telling a story, because that's what it roots. Comedy is rooted in that. Comedy is rooted in storytelling. I've been doing more storytelling as a comedian than I've been doing just straight stand up. Although I do a lot of stand up, I really like one of the great things about traveling as a comedian is you get to see other cultures. It was my dream. And the best place in the world to do comedy for me was Ireland, because they're a country of storytellers. So you go there, and it turns out you realize how pandering American comics are. Hey, give yourselves a round of applause for coming out tonight. Why would I do that? Why, I've gone out before. I don't need to applaud that I've gone out. But that's just a trick that comedians use. Or, hey, let's hear it for the troops. They don't get. It's like, fuck you. What do you mean, let's hear it for the troops? You're getting a laugh off of their, hard work. And so that's the one thing about Ireland. If you do that, you're out. If you pander, like my very first time I was in London, I said, "It's great to be here in London." The guy yelled, "Bullshit." And I went, "You're right, it's a shithole." And then I got the laugh. And I was an audition, so luckily I did okay. But that's what happens. You realize around the world how comedy is rooted in storytelling. And that's what that's what Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks did together. They weaved a story that we know and did a parody song and changed things around. But he made Mel laugh when he said, what was the thing he said? He said, "It's a story, but it's his grandchild, and he doesn't like all his relatives." And Mel said, "That's the funny thing in that story."
That's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I think is worth touching on is the sort of the Jewish tradition that's, Brooks coming out of the Borscht Belt and all of that. And Gene Wilder obviously has those connotations as well. That undercurrent through a lot of Mel Brooks' stuff is this recurring joke in a way. Like, oh, you wouldn't expect to see that kind of comedy in, say, a stylized monster movie, for example.
Right. Well, and the producers, Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah, exactly.
Would a Jewish person be offended? Would someone whose family was hurt by that scenario? Of course. But if you're funny, it alleviates the pain. So what I think Mel Brooks gets is growing up Jewish, there's a lot of guilt and fear, which doesn't exist in reality. We just create it. So Jews are very good at creating that. And, it's funny. People say, "Well, I feel guilty." I was like, why would you do that to yourself? You don't have to. Guilt is not a tangible item. But we use that often to get a point across. I think that a lot of people who grow up with pain and sorrow and sadness become very funny, because that's the way you take what is given to you and win. A situation you're losing in, then you win.
Why do you think a movie like this is still funny after all this time? The jokes don't really feel like they aged badly.
Because comedy, there's a rhythm in comedy. There's a mathematics in comedy. There's mathematics in music as well. Welcome. We were talking about you. Sorry. I know. But we're okay. But there's some mathematics in it. The rhythms of the world. Like, I'll give you an example in music. Say if you have a song that has 4 notes, la, 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 that's fine. But if one of the notes is a rest, it's much more musical. La, la, la. It's a whole different thing. It's like when Jack Benny would instead of saying a word, he would make a face. Because if it's just word, 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 it's not as powerful. And like if I said to you guys, I was walking down the street and I saw this beautiful car. We're fine, we understand. But if I said I was walking down the street and I saw this beautiful car, that pause, that rhythm, that mathematics that goes into that pause, it's foreshadowing what's about to come up. And to be able to use that's why a lot of sitcoms don't work well, because it's like the kid walks in, he has a joke. his parent comes in and yells at him with his joke, and it's just like joke. That's not what life is about. Life's a lot of, the rhythms of life are all around us, and once you key into them, or let yourself go and watch a movie like this, and just say, let it happen, and not be stiff or I would say not untouched by it. But if it affected you like Springtime for Hitler, you can sit back and laugh and go, you know what? Life is not. Life is horrible, and life has a lot of tragedy. But at the same time, comedy saves us. Right. It's very true. You could be late. What's that? Yeah. But you know what? If you're singing in the rain, then you're having the. Is that a line from? Okay. I was trying to stay away from that, but it's okay. We had a great moment together, and when I go home tonight, I'll think of you going, I should have said that line from Young Frankenstein.
I will say a few people, when I told them we were showing this movie, correct me and said Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. Yeah, exactly. So So
that's a parody of that. It's like what's that Crazy Al? Weird Al. He's gotten older now. He's crazy.
Yeah.
Now Weird Al, all he does is parodies, and it's an easy form. We could create a parody if we had time, and there wasn't a movie to take. We can create a parody right here. When I was a little boy, we would, all my friends, we would create parodies. Mama's got a sweet box she wears on her chest, and that's a Who thing, and it's horrible. But we were 11 and bad parenting, and we laughed at that.
You're so great at dissecting the art of comedy, and you teach now. You do workshops and so forth. What can you tell us about that?
Well, you can't teach comedy. It's you either have it or you don't. There's a rhythm that people have. But you can workshop it, and that's what I do. I set up workshops where, comedians get together, and we're each other's eyes and ears. Like I'm incredible at helping a comedian put a set together for television. But when it's my turn to put a set together, I call a certain group of people that are some of the best comics in the world and put like that joke we did together just a little bit ago. My son's a comedian, so I told him that joke. We workshopped it a little bit, and then it came to that. Because originally it was about the Tree of Knowledge, and people are idiots because I didn't let them eat at the Tree of Knowledge. But that wasn't as funny as the burning bush. It's sexual,
How many people here are seeing the movie for the first time? Just out of curiosity. Okay, nice. We have 2 people. So for those 2 people, 4 people, what would you like to, just as a final thought, give people to sort of set the stage?
Get lost in the movie. Let yourself be. Don't worry about the world around you. Just create a scenario for yourself that you can enjoy this, this crazy, mixed up, horrible world of let go. You're in the theater. It's one of the most incredibly beautiful art forms, and just have fun. And if you don't like something, there's another joke following. And have a gummy. Well, that's no wonder why you were talking out of turn. I had one gummy once. It wasn't. I felt like a dummy with my gummy. Yeah. Well, I understand. But the good thing is that you have a sense of humor, and you don't care if it's funny or not. I'm serious. I meant, like you just want to yell it out, and you're not going, well, if they don't laugh, blah, blah, blah. And then people go, what's blah, blah, blah? And then you can have an hour discussion on that. But again, the key is really just, this movie is brilliantly told. It's a parody movie of movies you've seen growing up, and it's done with love. And that's comedy, has a foundation of love. Whenever I'm writing something, I go, what's the foundation? The foundation for the joke that I did about the burning bush and orgasm is that my foundation was, religion oftentimes puts down sexuality. Many religions don't allow a sexual scenario. Meanwhile, if I was God and I created the orgasm, I'd be walking all over town telling everybody. Right, so that's the foundation for the joke, and then I create jokes from that.
Eddie, thank you for coming to Southampton. Please come back soon.
I came here for 15 minutes. I'm going back. I'm sorry, but I'm really glad. Enjoy the movie. It's phenomenal.